Part 1. The house on Ashfield Road. People think the worst part of firefighting is the fire, that it's not, that it's the silence after it's over. The moment you step through the charred remains, smoke still curling through the rafters, your boots crunching on soaked debris, and you realize something's off. That's when your gut starts whispering. That's when you should listen. My name is Daniel Rourke. I've been with Station 11 in rural Pennsylvania for 17 years. I've seen every kind of blaze: barn fires, chemical spills, trailer homes that went up like matchsticks. But none of that, not even the explosion in Allentown back in '08, prepared me for what we found on Ashfield Road. It was just after 2 a.m. when the call came in. Structure fire, possible entrapment. An old Victorian out past the town limits, surrounded by trees and dam, near forgotten by everyone but the property tax office. We were on scene in 9 minutes. The place was fully involved on the south side, flames licking up the wooden siding, like hell was trying to reclaim it. No visible movement inside. One neighbor, a guy in his 60s named Jeff, was out front in a bathrobe, yelling that the old man who lived there was probably inside. We went in fast. Me and Torres took the left flank, checking rooms. Johnson and McCree swept the second floor. Visibility was garbage. Thick black smoke, low heat signature on the infrared. Most of the furniture was old and dry. It fed the fire like gasoline. But something was strange. The fire pattern wasn't natural. There were 3 ignition points. 3. Intentional. Accelerated. We got it mostly under control in about 30 minutes. No sign of the homeowner, though. Torres and I were checking the ground floor for any backdraft pockets when he called out, "Hey, you smell that?" I did. It wasn't smoke or melting plastic. It was something organic. We followed it toward the back hallway, where a half-burned bookshelf had collapsed. Behind it, a hidden door. A basement. Now, let me stop here and say something clear. I've been in hundreds of houses. Rich, poor, hoarders, preppers. I've seen freezers full of rabbits, gun safes, even satanic shrines once in a meth shack. But I've never seen this. The door wasn't locked. We opened it. The stairs were concrete, steep, and went down farther than you'd expect in a house. Like this. The smoke was thinner down there, like the fire hadn't reached it fully. My flashlight cut through the dark. There was a cage. A full-sized, industrial-grade animal cage, bolted to the floor, and someone was inside. She was maybe 9 or 10, dirty, gaunt, clutching a stuffed toy that was half-burned. Her eyes didn't register fear when she saw us, just confusion. Torres froze. I stepped forward slowly. "Hey, you okay? Are you hurt?" She didn't answer, just stared. The cage door wasn't locked, thank God. We got her out. She didn't say a word, just kept looking at us like we were strangers or aliens. Or maybe she hadn't seen anyone in years. We radioed for EMS and got her outside. She never even blinked in the flashing lights. Back at the truck, we just stood there, soaking wet in our turnout gear, watching the ambulance drive away. "You think that was his kid?" Torres asked quietly. I shook my head. Didn't look like she'd ever seen the sun. Later that morning, the investigators found bones in the furnace room. Too many to be explained away by rodents or pets. They also found a series of handwritten notebooks sealed in Tupperware bins, detailed logs, dates, measurements, and drawings of cages of children. The news said it was a tragic case of suspected abuse and arson. But we knew better. That house hadn't burned by accident. Someone wanted it all to disappear. Someone had tried to erase what was in that basement. And maybe they didn't finish the job, because here's the thing. When I helped the girl out of that cage, her tiny fingers clutching my arm, she looked at me and finally spoke. Only 2 words. Whispered, "He's coming." Part 2. What she said. You ever have a word burrow into your head like a tick? That night, driving home after the fire, I kept hearing it again and again. "He's coming." Not "he's here." Not "he did this." "He's coming." And she looked so damn sure. The girl, we found out later her name was Lily, was taken to the county hospital for observation. No parents came forward. No reports of missing children matched. She had no last name. No usable fingerprints. Her speech was delayed. She didn't cry, didn't laugh. Just watched everyone with those wide, bruised eyes, like she was waiting for something to find her. Torres and I were off shift the next day, but neither of us really slept. I showed up at the station anyway. The guys were quiet. Word had spread. McCree said his brother-in-law was a cop over in the next town and heard rumors that the case wasn't being handled locally anymore. FBI had shown up overnight. FBI, that's when I knew we weren't dealing with something normal. Around noon, I got a call. Block number. At first I didn't answer. Second time, I picked up. A voice. Male, maybe 50s, low, said, "You were on Ashfield Road." Not a question. Who is this? Pause. Don't talk about what you found. Don't go back. You won't be warned again. Clicked. I stared at my phone for a full minute. Then I drove to the hospital. The pediatric wing had an armed guard outside. Real badge, federal seal. But I've been a first responder a long time, and I know how to talk the talk. I just want to check on the girl we pulled out. I was first inside. The guy hesitated, then said, 10 minutes. Lily was in a small room, no windows. Her hair had been washed. Her hands were bandaged, wrists bruised like she'd fought restraints. A nurse sat in the corner, flipping through a chart. When I walked in, Lily looked at me. Didn't blink, didn't smile, but she whispered something. I leaned in. "What did you say?" She raised one finger, then pointed to the corner of the room. He was there. I turned. Nothing, just a chair. I looked back at her. "Who is he?" She stared at the wall, jaw clenched. "Where is he now?" She didn't answer. I had to leave after that. The nurse looked spooked. I overheard her muttering something about moving the girl to a psych facility out of state, but I knew what I saw in that kid's eyes, not trauma, recognition. That night, around 3:17 a.m., I woke up suddenly. Cold. My window was open. I never leave it open. My phone buzzed. A photo to NO numbered. IT was my fire truck. Engine 11. Parked outside the station. But in the reflection of the windshield, there was a figure. Not one of you asked, in O gear. No badge. No face. Just black, like the outline of a man, tall and still. I blinked. Looked again. The photo was gone. Deleted. Next day, I went back to the site on Ashfield Road. I had to. I needed to see it again. Most of the structure was demolished. The fire marshal had already roped it off, but I still had my gear in the truck. Climbed over the caution tape and stepped through the rubble, ash crunching under my boots. The basement. Door was still there. Soot-stained. Opened. I went down. The cage was gone, but the bolts were still in the floor. Deep gouges in the concrete where someone had ripped it out fast. Tools scattered nearby, like they didn't care how noisy they were. And something else. Symbols on the walls, painted in black. Circles, eyes, jagged lines. I don't know what they meant, but they were fresh. As I leaned closer, my flashlight flickered. Then I heard it, breathing. Behind me. I turned to NO1. But the air was wrong. Thick, heavy, like the oxygen had been drained. I got out of there fast. That night, I didn't sleep. None of us did. Torres called me at 2 a.m., said his dog wouldn't stop growling at the closet. Johnson reported his daughter sleepwalking for the first time in years. Said she stood at the front door whispering, "He's cold." The cage may have been empty, but he wasn't gone. Part 3. The pattern after the basement. Everything changed. I started digging. Public fire reports, missing persons bulletins, anything I could get my hands on. I used old connections, people I hadn't spoken to in years, just trying to find out if this was a freak event or if it was something bigger. And what I found chilled me. There were 6 fires in the last 10 years, all in small towns across the state, all in houses that mysteriously caught fire during storms. Each one had a basement. Each one had evidence of something caged. And in 3 of those fires, children were found, alone, silent, never claimed, no known relatives. They were passed into foster care, into psych facilities, and then nothing. Records went cold, erased, like someone wanted it that way. I brought this to Torres one night. We met behind the station after hours, smoking like we used to before we got clean. He listened quietly as I laid out the files, photos, burned floor plans. When I got to the part about the other kids, his hands started to shake. "You remember that boy in Brighton?" he said suddenly. I nodded. "The house with the locked basement." "Yeah. You ever think it was weird how fast the feds took over?" I hadn't, but now I did. He tossed his cigarette. "What do you think's in that cage?" I looked at him, really looked, and I said the thing that had been circling my mind like a vulture for weeks. "I don't think it's human." 3 days later, Torres disappeared. Just like that. Didn't show up for roll call. Didn't answer texts. His apartment was locked from the inside. Dog was fed. Wallet on the table. But he was gone. I filed a report. Cops barely blinked. Said he probably ran off. Stress, PTSD, whatever excuse they could muster, but I knew better. I went to his place that night. The apartment was cold, windows open, just like mine had been. But worse, there were footprints, ashy, bare, not human. Three-toed, long, like claws. They started at the window and stopped next to his bed. I started seeing things. I in reflections. In the corner of my eye. A tall figure, long arms, no face, not a shadow, darker than a shadow, like it absorbed light around it. One night I caught it in my hallway mirror, just standing behind me. I turned, and nothing, but the glass had a crack running through it, clean and vertical. Then came the dreams, the cage, the girl, the basement, except this time, I was inside, and it was watching me. I contacted one of the other firefighters from the Brighton incident, old guy named Mahoney, retired in Florida. I tracked him down through a union contact, told him I wanted to talk about Brighton. He went silent on the phone, then said, "It's following you now, isn't it?" My blood turned to ice. Mahoney said after that fire, he saw the same signs, same disappearances, same men in suits telling him to keep his mouth shut. Eventually, he quit, moved to a gated community, never spoke of it again until I called. "Don't try to fight it," he said. "That thing, it's not from here. It's older than the house, older than the fire. They feed it. Keep it moving." Who feeds it? But he'd already hung up. I started to notice patterns. Every 17 months. Always during a storm. Always in towns just far enough apart that no one connects the dots. A house burns. A child survives. The cage is left behind until we find it. Until it finds us. It's a cycle. A ritual. And we're just pawns in it. I started carrying a weapon off duty. I wasn't sure it would help, but it made me feel less helpless. I stopped sleeping. Ate less. My skin started to look pale, like the life was being drained out of me. The girl, Lily, was moved again, this time to a federal protective facility. I tried to visit, was denied. "Not your concern," they said, "but I think she knows more than anyone." I think she's seen it, been near it, maybe even been used by it. One night, I got a message, handwritten, slipped under my door. One sentence, "The next fire is coming." And on the back, coordinates, somewhere in the mountains, middle of nowhere. Same symbols were drawn in the corner. The circles, the eye, the cage. I knew what I had to do. Asterisk Part 4. Into the fire. The coordinates led me into the Appalachians. A 3-hour drive out of state. No cell service, no radio, just endless pine, fog, and the sound of my own heartbeat. The end of a dirt trail. I found it. A house, or what was left of one. Charred wood, broken beams, burnt trees surrounding it in a perfect circle. It hadn't just burned, it had been erased. But the basement hatch? Still intact, just like before. I parked 100 yards out and went in on foot, flashlight in one hand, sidearm in the other. I don't know what I expected. Feds? A trap? The thing itself, what I found was worse. The basement was untouched, like the fire had never reached it. Clean concrete walls, metal shelves, and at the far end, the cage, same steel bars, same lock, and inside, a boy, maybe 9 or 10, curled up, wearing a white hospital gown, breathing, but barely. His eyes fluttered open as I approached. "You're not one of them," he whispered. I knelt. "Who?" "The men in suits. The ones that bring us." "Us?" He looked past me, toward the shadows. "There's more." I didn't have time to ask more. The sound came again. A low hum. Mechanical. Wrong. Then light. Red. Sweeping over the walls. I turned and ran back up the stairs, yanking the boy into my arms. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. But I ran. I didn't stop until we reached the tree line. That's when I saw them point 3 black SUVs. No license plates. Armed men in tactical gear stepped out, rifles drawn. One shouted something. I didn't answer. I bolted. They didn't shoot. They didn't need to. I tripped. Fell. Shielded the boy, but the sound stopped, and when I looked up, they were gone. Just vanished, like fog burning off in sunlight. I turned to the boy, and he was crying. "I didn't mean to hurt them," he said. "I didn't mean to be born like this." We camped in the woods overnight. He told me things I still don't understand, about them, the ones in the suits, about how they take kids from nowhere places, kids no one will miss, kids like Lily, kids like him. They test them, breed them, almost, looking for something. A spark, a gene, A mutation, something ancient. And when they find it? When a child survives. The fire? They keep them in cages. They say it comes from the stars, he whispered. But it was buried here first. Long ago. Before people. What is it? He shook his head. It doesn't have a name. We made it back to my truck by dawn. I gave him food, warm clothes. He smiled. A real smile. And for a second, I thought maybe this would end differently. But when I turned to call someone, anyone, he was gone. No footprints. No sound. Just gone. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, 3 more houses have burned. Each one in a different state. Each one during a storm. And in every case, a survivor. A child. Unclaimed. Unharmed. And always the cage in the basement. But never anyone in it. I tried going public. No one listens. My captain benched me. Said I needed rest. Trauma, he said. Stress. Maybe he's right. Or maybe they got to him too. My apartment is being watched. I see them sometimes. Unmarked sedans, black jackets, no faces. I keep the curtains closed. And every night, the hum returns low, vibrating the walls. Like it's looking for me. Like it remembers that I think about Lily. About Torres. About Mahoney. About the boy in the cage. And I ask myself, why me? Why let me see it? Why leave me alive? And then I realize, I'm not the end of the story. I'm the witness. The warning. Because the fire isn't the danger. It's the signal. The ritual. The cage isn't there to keep the creature in. It's there to keep us out. And one day, maybe, tomorrow, maybe years from now, the locks will fail and the fire won't go out.